the beginnings of PBS was going to probably be dismantled by Richard Nixon, whose approach to media was to threaten stations if they didn't behave politically.
Nixon had a problem with his budget. He had to find money for the Vietnam War. It wasn't a lot of money in today's terms, but he wanted to cut the budget.
In the midst of all this, Fred Rogers gets to go before Congress, argue for $20 million of funding to sort of solidify PBS in front of John Pastore, who's the senator who had already sort of made his congressional bones by attacking television.
This is going to be a thorough hearing. This is going to be a hearing not to reach for a headline, but to reach for a result.
There have been 2 days of hearings, and he hasn't been very impressed. If you've been watching those hearings and you had to bet on whether or not PBS was going to keep going, no.
That educational television should permanently struggle for subsistence is intolerable.
All right, who's the next witness?
Senator Pastore told the group, I've heard everybody read your testimonies. I don't want anyone to read anymore. I'm tired of hearing the reading. When I heard about that, I thought, uh-oh, Fred.
All right, Rogers, you got the floor.
And I could hear in his voice the nerves.
Senator Pastore, this is a philosophical statement and would take about 10 minutes to read, so I'll not do that. One of the first things that a child learns in a healthy family is trust. And I trust what you have said, that you will read this. It's very important to me. I care deeply about children. My first children...
Will it make you happy if you read it?
I'd just like to talk about it, if it's all right.
Sir.
This is what I give. I give an expression of care every day to each child to help him realize that he is unique. I end the program by saying, you've made this day a special day by just your being you. There's no person in the whole world like you, and I like you just the way you are. And I feel that if we in public television can only make it clear that feelings are mentionable and manageable, we will have done a great service. Could I tell you the words of one of the songs which I feel is very important?
Yes.
This has to do with that good feeling of control, which I feel that the children need to know is there. And it starts out, what do you do with the mad that you feel? And that first line came straight from a child. I work with children, doing puppets in very personal communication with small groups. What do you do with the mad that you feel? When you feel so mad you could bite. When the whole wide world seems oh so wrong, and nothing you do seems very right. It's great to be able to stop when you've planned a thing that's wrong and be able to do something else instead and think this song. I can stop when I want to, can stop when I wish, can stop, 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 anytime. Know that there's something deep inside that helps us become what we can.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. Looks like you just earned the $20 million.
It was a profound moment that people still talk about. And what's amazing is in this point, this pastor who showed up at this Senate committee meeting, he doesn't argue the budget. He doesn't mention the numbers. He doesn't counter the politics. He's not resistant. He's not defiant. He simply does what he does. He loves. I'm going to argue that what he does in that room is he loves. He loves the kids that aren't even present, and he loves the man that's before him right now. Empire has all of these levers. They have all of this power, and there's simply nothing for them to grip with Mr. Rogers in the room. There's no lever that they can pull to try to make this man crumble. There's no way that they can do this. There's no threat they can levy him. The threat's already been made. All that he does in that face, the defiance that he has, is to love. And there's this second order detail that Fred Rogers had been told his whole career that what he did was too soft. It was too simple. It was too small to matter. If you watch the entire hearing, you hear him talk about how his first budget was $15 a week. That was his first budget. And here he is getting $20 million. Little strength. And he just kept doing the same simple thing. So that, church, is what we're talking about this week when we talk about Philadelphia. That's the city of Philadelphia. We're in week 6 of this series. We've been looking at the 7 letters to the 7 churches in Revelation. The lens that we've been looking through this is kingdom versus empire, the kingdom of God versus empire. In this original instance, it was the Empire of Rome, but there's a lot to understand with that. We've realized that these are not irrelevant texts, but this is live correspondence. It finishes every single letter with, whoever has ears, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches. Hopefully that is us. Hopefully we can hear what the Spirit says to the churches. So we've come through a whole lot. We talked about Ephesus, where love became an obligation, and the activity was the same, but the thing driving it had been replaced. We have Smyrna, which had no charge, but they didn't know what they had. Pergamum, where the silence had settled in, and the community stopped saying the hard thing. Thyatira, where empire's logic got a prophetic voice inside the church. And last week, Sardis, where they had the name, they had the label, they had the reputation, but all of that had outlived the life itself. We've seen consistently that empire applies pressure and leverage. And you probably know this, right? This for that. Things have a price. To engage with us on the same stage, to go into the market and to buy something, you simply have to play the game. Like you have to toe the line. You have to do these things or else you can't play. So empire has leverage and they work it. Philadelphia has become unleverageable because it lives from a love that empire cannot threaten. That's what I want us to hear this morning. So, fun fact, as soon as I say Philadelphia, you're probably thinking of either the Liberty Bell or cream cheese or steak sandwiches or the Eagles. I had to put that logo up there. Cream cheese, funny enough, is not from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Do you know that? Philadelphia cream cheese is from New York, but the name Philadelphia just meant like such a high quality that they're like, yeah, okay, we're going to call it Philadelphia. So it has nothing to do with the city whatsoever. But the meaning is the same, brotherly love. That's what Philadelphia means wherever we find it. Philadelphia, back in the ancient world, is the least strategically significant of the 7 cities that we've been looking at. But it's significant for a different reason. It was founded specifically as a gateway city. Attalus II, he planted it on the edge of a high plateau to be a center of Greek language and culture spreading eastward towards Lydia and Phrygia. It was built to be a threshold between these worlds, and that's not a metaphor. It's literally why the city existed. It existed so that they could find a place to be a springboard, an open door to spread their culture to those places that were not yet like them. And so Attalus II, the guy who found this, he was called Philadelphus, the lover of his brother, because he had extraordinary loyalty to his brother. He would not take the throne when offered. He said, that's my brother's. He did not challenge the throne when it came to him. He was offered the throne twice when his brother was away, and he refused it both times. So they named it after this guy really loves his brother. So it's kind of a kindness. It's not a sentiment, it's not affection, but it's that kind of love that holds when holding it even costs you something. And the alternative is right there on the table. It is a geographically unstable place in the world. This is where there are earthquakes. It's kind of like California in that way. There was a severe earthquake in 17 AD, so that's before this letter was written. It's one of the most destructive things that we see in the ancient world. And Tiberius, the emperor, provided relief funds. And so when Tiberius offered them relief funds, guess what they did? They changed their name. They changed their name to Neo-Caesarea in gratitude. So Philadelphia became Neo-Caesarea even before this letter was written. And then later on, they renamed the city again to Flavia under Vespasian. The reason that they did this was because somebody was showing them kindness. This city had this reputation of renaming itself for whoever held the power, which is a very interesting footnote here, right? Whoever offered them protection, they would say, all right, we're going to take your name. Whatever your name is, emperor, we will take that upon ourselves. But here it is interesting in Revelation 3 that they are writing this letter to Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, instead of calling it Flavia. So they knew what it meant to have your name changed by the one with the key. They knew that their names were provisional, and they knew that permanence was something that empires promised but could not deliver. So this is a small church. It's probably genuinely small. We'll get to the letter here in just a second, but their little strength is not a metaphor. I think they actually had little strength. They had little power, little influence, what they have. So let's turn to the text, Revelation 3, starting in verse 7. To the angel of the church in Philadelphia, write, these are the words of him who is holy and true, who holds the key of David. What he opens, no one can shut, and what he shuts, no one can open. I know your deeds. See, I've placed before you an open door that no one can shut. I know that you have little strength, yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. I will make those who are of the synagogue of Satan, who claim to be Jews, though they are not, but are liars, I will make them come and fall down at your feet and acknowledge that I have loved you. Since you have kept my command to endure patiently, I will also keep you from the hour of trial that's going to come on the whole world to test the inhabitants of the earth. I am coming soon. Hold on to what you have, so that no one will take your crown. The one who's victorious I will make a pillar in the temple of my God. Never again will they leave it. I will write on them the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the new Jerusalem, which is coming down out of heaven from my God. And I will also write on them my new name. Whoever has ears, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches. So again, just a reminder what we have found that time and time again in these letters, that the way that Christ introduces himself kind of matters. He's able to identify himself with these cities that he's writing to with some messianic title, some description of who God is that resonates with the inhabitants there. So we are not finding a new thing here. This is the same message that we have. This is the credential that Christ says. These are the words of him who is holy and true, who holds the key of David. What he opens, no one can shut, and what he shuts, no one can open. This is still what we see. Holy and true. Hagios and alethanos. And Ava, if you flick to the next one, we can show this. Yes, these are the two words, hagios and alethanos. These are not descriptors of power, but of the nature of God, of what Christ is at the most fundamental level. Hagios, it just means set apart. We've talked about this before, but holiness is a physical word. It means that you are different. It means that you are in a different place than other things. You are used for a holy purpose. And if you look at temples, you see that they are physically distinct. They are different from other places. You don't just wander through a pizza parlor and end up in the back door of a temple. That's not how this thing worked. It's not by contrast to the profane. It's not holy as opposed to unholy. It is intrinsically, essentially, of a complete different order. The word doesn't mean the opposite, doesn't need an opposite to mean what it means. That's like, it just is other. So I think in this whole series, we've been framing things as verses, right? Kingdom versus empire. And clearly, church, if you've been around, you know that there is opposition. This is something that we know ourselves personally. We feel opposition when we pray sometimes. We know that there's opposition whenever we want to see the kingdom of God come. We know that our bodies face opposition from getting older, and we feel this settle into our bones. We know that there's opposition. But we think of it sometimes in the terms of like Greeks versus Romans. We think of it as like Ukraine versus Russia. And it puts them on the same field, like on the same battlefield. And I think that sometimes we think of this cosmically, and we think of things like Star Wars. We think of the good side of the Force and the dark side of the Force. And it's this idea of good versus evil. But that doesn't translate to the kingdom of God. And this is what I want you to hold. God is other. There's none like him. There's none on that playing field. There's not this sort of equal and equivalent opposite force pushing against God. There's not this idea that, oh, he could if he could, but boy, that opposition is just too strong, so what are we going to see? The kingdom of God is not the same stuff as what the enemies of the kingdom of God are about. The kingdom of heaven is not the same stuff as the empires of this world. It's other. It's hagios. It's of a different type entirely. And then that gets us to alethanos. Alethenos is not true as in correct. This is not saying that he is holy and he's correct. It's saying that he's true as in real, the genuine article. For a brief time, there was the kids in the 90s. We have these. You can look at this is the suede jacket and the bass shoes. Did anybody else go to a high school where this was like what the cool kids wore? Just me. All right, so that's okay. Just imagine in the 90s that you wanted to be a cool kid. This is what you would have. Tag with it, like a pretty lofty price tag. And regardless of my family's financial well-being or not, my dad was just of the type of no. so regardless, when I would ask for these, it wasn't quite a possibility. However, there were cheap knockoffs. And so you could see where this went. I did not get the genuine article. I did not get the real deal. And my friends were prone to point out the fact that the soles of my bass shoes were not quite the same red. The jacket, the cut of the bomber jacket was not quite the same thing as what the other kids were wearing. It just didn't match. You know, I asked, I tried, but the genuine article was something that I could not quite get. John uses this word for the genuine article, for the real thing, to talk about the true light, like the true light, the true vine, the true bread, which is not the better version of the earthly thing. Again, these are not the same sort of category of things. This is talking about what those earthly things kind of are like a shadow of. Like when you get the real deal, when you have the genuine article, it's something of a completely different order than what we had. So Christ, again, is introducing himself as someone who's simply of a different order of reality than the whole contest and the leverage that Philadelphia has been understanding with empire. That they come in, they fix your city, and then they put their name on the gate. And what he's saying is, church in Philadelphia, I will give you my name. Empire is real. The pressure's real. Exclusion is real. But Christ is alethenos. He's the realness that makes everything else derivative. I've been in a church where we call this the really real, and I think that that's a confusing but also very powerful statement, that when we talk about God, he's what's really real behind the scenes. In The Great Divorce, C.S. Lewis talks about the grass of heaven being so solid, being of such a strong substance, that those who are not born again can't walk on it because it hurts their feet too much. Like, it's just the really real thing. This is the substance of the thing that everything else kind of wants to be, but it can't quite get on the same playing field. And then we see the key of David and the door that cannot be shut. This is straight from Isaiah 22:22. And what we have in Isaiah 22:22 is this story where Eliakim is replacing this guy Shebna as the steward over the royal household. That's what's happening. The key in this passage means administrative authority. Control of access to the king. So he who has the king says who can come and who can go. He says you're allowed in or you're not. And so Shebna had the key, and he was using it for his own position and for his own security. But when Eliakim receives it as someone who will be the father to Jerusalem, he puts the key in service of the people rather than the holder. That's what was happening in Isaiah 22:22. The key that was used to exclude became the key to allow people access to the king himself. And it became in service of the people rather than the holder. And so this is, again, Christ saying that I am going to be the holder of the key. I have access to the Father, and I give access to those who come through me. So what a powerful story to pull from. What a powerful way to recognize who we are and what we're enjoying now. Which means that every other door that Philadelphia might be anxious about, the ones that empire has shunned, the ones that the synagogues themselves have excluded the Christians from joining, those doors are all going to actually be things that the church in Philadelphia now has direct access to. All right, I know your deeds. See, I've placed before you an open door that no one can shut. This is repetitive, right? So Jesus just said that he's the one who can open the door that nobody can shut and shut the door that nobody can open. Now he's saying, I know your deeds. I've placed before you an open door that no one can shut. It's repetitive, but it's not redundant, all right? It's repetitive, but it's not redundant. What do I mean by that? I mean that he's taking this thing that he's done cosmically, and he's giving it to Philadelphia. He's saying, I have done this thing for everybody. I've done this thing for all of creation. When Christ died on the cross, you understand this, right? That you were forgiven. Like we all were. We joke about this with Mr. Rogers. You're special just like everybody else, right? It's this idea of like, well, if it's true for everybody, how can it be especially true for me? But Christ is doing that right here. He's saying, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. It's repetitive without being redundant. It is personal. Christ does this, but he does it for you, Philadelphia. So when is a door not a door? There we go. Thank you. I'm glad somebody could go with me with a dad joke. When it's ajar. But pertinent to this, it's when you can't actually shut it. A door stops becoming a door when you can't close it. It's just a passageway then, right? If a door cannot be shut by any human, if a door cannot be closed, is it even a door? Is it recognizable as that? It's permanent passage, which is why this story, this letter, this anecdote is way more radical than just saying it's an open door. What it's saying is that it's no longer going to function. Its ability to be a door has been permanently revoked. The door precedes the commendation. It's not reward, but it's reality. The founding purpose of this city, again, Philadelphia, was meant to be a threshold, a place where the two worlds could join together, a gateway between them. The church in the city that's built to be a door has a door in front of it that nobody can close. This place, geographically positioned, culturally used by empire, and then the church within it, given its own unique, special place to allow permanent access to God himself. John knew exactly where he was sending this letter to. So when empire and the synagogue were trying to shut that door to this church. They're trying to say, you are no longer Jews, you have no access to God, you are not beloved, you are not any of those things. They're saying, we control access to God. That's what the synagogue did. We know where he is in his holy temple, and we understand how to get to him. And this Christianity cult thing is not going to have any basis in the future because it does not actually give you access to anything. So practically, how do they do this? They remove legal protection, economic belonging, social standing, community. But underneath those practical things, it was making this statement about relationship. You're not valid. You're not beloved. You don't have relationship. You don't have access. The one on the other side, the synagogue was saying, doesn't receive you. You're not known there. And that's the wound. It's not even just exclusion practically. It's the implication that you're not beloved. You're not welcome. The claim that God's face was turned away, that the door between Philadelphia and God was shut. And so what Christ is saying here is not primarily, I'm going to restore your access. He's saying that these gatekeepers don't even represent me. He's saying they're standing in front of a door that's been open this whole time. And I'm going to put this in a little bit of contrast, just looking ahead a little bit. Verse 9, I will make those who are the synagogue of Satan, who claim to be Jews, though they are not, but are liars. I will make them come and fall down at your feet and acknowledge that I have loved you. The door meant to be access, but access is only the question because of who's on the other side. Access to what is the only reason we have doors. The synagogue had that, and the temple was that, but they excluded the church. So the promise that we have here, the commendation, is access to God and vindication to those who oppose them. And I think that this is a human thing. We want vindication. We want to feel like it's not just that I have the access restored, but also I'm going to argue that it's really great if you could rub in the face of my enemies. Like, I'd really enjoy it, not just that it's like, hey, Josh, you were right, but also they were wrong, right? It's setting up this thing. And I'm setting you up, by the way, for something I'm going to smack you with later on. Just remember that feeling of vindication that we have right here. We want the room to admit that we were right. But the door's not the point. The door's never the point. It's always to get you through on the other side. So with Paul in the Old Testament, anywhere, it's the threshold moment where you find out whether you have access to something or don't. It's the revelation of the relationship. The fact that the door is permanently open is just the testimony that you belong, that there's no longer a thing separating you. When the curtain was torn in the temple, it was a profoundly, profoundly significant event that said God is with his people, that said God has made access permanent and unable to be revoked. And Christ is saying, That's what I'm doing here for you specifically, Philadelphia. It was never intended to keep you out. It was always just a way to me, and you were never actually blocked, but you believed the people that told you you did not have access. So it's a little reminiscent of like the ruby slippers from the Wizard of Oz, right? That you always had access. If you just knew to click your heels and say there's no place like home, you could have gone home. But have we understood the access that we have to the King of Kings, church? Is what I'll leave you with on that. Little strength. I know that you have little strength, yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. You have small power. You have limited resources. This is not a rebuke, all right? This is not Christ giving a backhanded compliment to them. This is not that. He's saying you have limited resources. So this is not rebuke dressed as a description. It meant that they have nothing to trade with in empire's economy. When you have physical resources, when you have social standing, when you have legal protection, when you have imperial favor, it's genuinely hard to figure out from what power you operate from, right? Faithfulness and self-interest can look identical from the outside, and they can even feel, tragically, identical from inside. I get some comments every now and then about my car. If you don't know, I drive a 2003 Honda. You can put it up here, Honda Accord here. This is a great little brag picture that I had you whip up for me, that this is not my actual car, but this is the make and model that I love. So it is now the year 2026. My car is a 2003. That makes it a classic. When you think of a classic car, you might think of Mustangs or, I don't know, Dodge Chargers. No. The Hondas, that's where it's all at. And I'm joking about it a bit. My kids hate it, But the story about why I have this car is profound, and why I hold on to it's profound. I had an accident way back when. I needed a car. I had a job. And I remember just praying very clearly, God, I could just buy a car. Like I have the means. I have a job. I have all this stuff right now. I could buy a car. And I realized I don't know him as Jehovah Jireh, my provider. And it was a really profound moment where I was like, I want to know you that way. I don't want to do this with myself. I don't want to do this on my own, because there's an opportunity to know God in a profound way. So I prayed that prayer, didn't think too much about it, went to work, and the story has all these little twists and turns which I could give you, but the shortcome of it is that day God provided a car for me. This car that I still drive today. And the thing is, are we operating from divine access, or are we operating from personal strength? Are we operating from a knowledge of who God is, or the things that we can do with our own two hands? And can we identify when we cross that line? Like, are we just missing out on something because God wants to be known in a certain way? Having little strength strips Philadelphia of all that question, because what's left is what was real all along. And what was real in Philadelphia, when all that was stripped away, when all they had was little strength, what they saw was this: they kept his word. They didn't deny his name. That's the entire commendation. They didn't have the ability to do these things on themselves. They didn't have the resources to do these things themselves, but that revealed who they were. They kept his word. They didn't deny his name. Conditions are designed to make that impossible, that they be excluded and marginalized. They don't have the means to keep going, but they just kept doing the simple things because that's who they were. The whole commendation is these two clauses: kept his word, didn't deny his name. That's not heroic faithfulness. It's not dramatic resistance. They just continued. I think that this whole series, I've just noticed that regardless of circumstance, regardless of setting, regardless of all of these details, what he tells them to do, what he says, I see you, is you held on. You persisted. You did the small things. You didn't lose sight. You didn't forget who you were, and you didn't forget whose you were, regardless of everything else that's going on. And I think we make our faith so much more complicated than what it must be. I think that we can find our footing when we come before the throne. We say, I am yours. And there's this saying that we've had in the vineyard, right? That, do you remember when it was enough to simply love Jesus? And the answer is, it's still enough. I mean, we make it about so many things. We think about deliverance and warfare, and those things matter. They're things that we have to deal with. We think about the gifts and the tongues and the discernment and all these things, and it's hard and it's complex, and it matters. But my goodness, at the end of the day, to be loved by him is enough. It was all that it ever took, and that's all that it will ever take. Not even to love him, but to be loved by him is enough. Like, think about how profound that is, like how complicated we've made this whole thing when we know that we are beloved, when we know that his grace and his mercy are for me, when we receive that and we hold on to that as the most precious thing, the only thing that really matters, the thing that defines me, the thing that gives me hope, the thing that restores me in the morning and that puts me to bed at night. When that is the thing that we have, when we hold on to that, nothing else matters. There's no lever that can be pulled against us that's going to be a challenge for us. Which means that whatever was operating in Philadelphia was not strategy or survival or cultural momentum. You can't maintain strategy whenever these things are here. All that they did was know whose they were. So, not denying his name. In the Roman world, the question, are you a Christian, is not theological. It's really a loyalty test. Because it was a question of, who do you belong to? Are you this Christ guys or are you Caesar's? You know, do you belong to the empire? Or do you belong to this ragtag kingdom of God thing that you're talking about? It's a loyalty test with a known correct answer. And the name is the allegiance. To confess it is a claim to who I are. And you're saying that it supersedes the loyalty that I have to the emperor. You can see why that is a defined thing to say Christ is Lord. What you're saying is he has my allegiance first and foremost. Above all things, I am Christ's. So empire gives you this escape hatch. You just say that I'm not Christ. You just say that it doesn't apply to me, and you can walk away. But Philadelphia never did that. So yes, the name's not just an identifier. It's the weight of someone's presence, their character, their claim on the world. And to bear their name is to bring them into that room with you. And to deny them that name is to say that I refuse to carry that person's identity with me. So when Peter denied Christ those 3 times, right, saying, I don't know him, that's not primarily cowardice. It's a formal act of disavowal. He's saying, I will not be identified with that man. It's not that I don't recognize him. It's not that it doesn't apply. He is saying, do not lump me in the same category as Christ. I disavow who that man is. I'm not connected to the person. He's not my reality. Philadelphia would never say that. But this isn't only a Christian story. This is one of empire's oldest moves. Here we have damnatio memoriae. And this is the damnation of memory. This is a formal institutional act of erasure. There was a Senate vote. There is every inscription of the person was chiseled out. Every statue is defaced or melted. Every record about them was going to be altered. The name is removed from the world as if that person never existed. The name is not just a punishment. This is an ontological erasure. Empire saying you were never real. You have no claim on history, and you didn't happen. The Egyptians do this as well. We actually have these gaps in our Egyptian record, not simply because it's so long ago, but because they actually erased the people that they didn't want anybody talking about. So as we've tried to piece together the history of Egypt, there's these gaps, right? So Hatshepsut, I'm saying that wrong, Hatshepsut, you can put it on the screen, Ava, so that everybody can say it wrong together. She was one of the most powerful pharaohs in Egyptian history. She ruled for 20 years. She erected the tallest obelisks in Egypt, and after her death, Thutmose III systematically erased her. The chisels went across the temple walls, and her image was gone. Statues were smashed and burned in pits, and they could not find her at all. And there's this 30-year gap trying to figure out what happened in Egypt at this point in time. And for 3,000 years, she was gone from history. And then in the 19th century, they finally found a face underneath some plaster with one inscription. And all of a sudden, things began coming into shape. They understood what they had. The name survived in the stone underneath the plaster, and the buried statues and the walls built to hide what couldn't be destroyed. This is empire's oldest move. If you can't defeat what somebody else built, erase the name. How many ways, church, have you heard you don't matter? How many ways have you heard you're not significant? This synagogue was doing this to Philadelphia in a softer form. You're not in the book. You're in the book of life. You don't count. We're the ones who control access to God. You don't matter. Your story isn't part of the story. Your existence doesn't register in the covenant. It's some of the worst things that humans do. It's whenever the parent stops speaking a child's name after they've had a rupture, and they're like, I'm not even going to speak of you. I'm not even going to acknowledge that I have any children anymore. When a community doesn't include you in the conversation anymore, it's denial of a name at a human scale. It does the same thing that the Roman Senate was doing. You're less real than the rest of us. I argue all again that I think the comment of somebody being an NPC is one of the least kind things that we say in this new age, kids, because it's such a hateful thing to say your life doesn't even count. You're like an artifact. You're a background character in everybody else's story. What happens to you doesn't matter. And the thing is, church, we do this to ourselves. Yes, Empire might do it. Yes, we might do it to others, but we do it to ourselves. The name that you won't claim because somebody convinced you it's not legitimate. Calling that you won't speak out loud because you're not sure you have the right to it. People who are called to do things, but it just feels too big, too broad, or I don't know, I'm just some guy. I'm just a person. Who am I to think that I'm going to be a person to stand for the gospel in that way? A belovedness that we can't quite receive because the voices that deny us get there first, and they go so deep, and we feel unworthy. We feel unworthy to acknowledge the calling could possibly be true for me. Peter denying Christ is also Peter denying himself, all right? It wasn't just cowardice. The name he put down in the courtyard is the name that was written on him by Christ himself. Christ said, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." So when he did that action, when he disavowed Christ himself, he was also disavowing that thing Christ had called him to be. He was saying, I'm not Peter on which Christ will build his church. He's saying, that's not who I am. Philadelphia kept carrying the name of Christ everywhere that they went. They would write down his name when they were asked who they were. All right. I will make those who are of the synagogue of Satan, who claim to be Jews, though they are not, but are liars. I will make them come and fall down at your feet and acknowledge that I have loved you. The synagogue of Satan is in 2 of these 7 letters here with Smyrna. Both churches have little strength. Both have no charge. Both are facing the specific form of opposition. What the synagogue was actually doing is not just excluding them from community, like I said, that's real and costly, but is an identity claim with theological weight. You are not covenant people. You don't register in this. That's the specific wound that this letter is getting at, right? They will bow down. The word for that is worship. For prostrating before Caesar, for falling before God. This is Isaiah 45, 49, and 60, a promise where we see that they're going to restore Israel and that the nations who opposed them all along will come and acknowledge that God was with them all along. This is a promise that we see in the Old Testament that, again, we're seeing realized for Philadelphia, saying, you are my image bearer. You are my name bearer. Like all these things that were true about all of the people of God are specifically true for you, church in Philadelphia, you of little strength. John's applying these promises to a community that was excluded by those claiming to be Israel. But notice that it's what they're going to acknowledge. It's not simply you were right. It's not you had legitimate standing all along. It's not acknowledging the truth of this. It's not a theological debate. Acknowledge that I loved you. I want you to get this. The vindication doesn't resolve the legitimacy question on legitimacy's own terms. It steps outside of that. It's not answering a theological argument with a theological argument. It's not going to the Senate and arguing for budget because we're talking about dollars and cents here, and I'm going to give you a rationale as to why $20 million makes sense. It's stepping outside of that and just saying, you're loved. It's changing the equation that people use trying to draw these conclusions. The argument against Philadelphia was theological. It's like, no, this is the history, this is the word. The answer is not, no, this is the answer and this is the word. The answer was, you are loved. It's a completely different argument. There's no rebutting that. There's no way that you can argue this point. The answer is, you have been beloved. The Greek form of this, quick little geeking, it's a completed action, meaning it's done, it's settled, done and dusted, right? It's already accomplished. I have loved you is past tense in the sense that the cross is past tense. It's already complete. It's already secured. It's agape. You already have the agape. In a place of brotherly love, you have agape. It's already unreachable by anything in that synagogue or empire because it's a completed action. It's untouchable. It can't be refuted. It can't be argued about. This is done. They will know it, the scripture says. Not that they're going to be told, not that they're going to concede it. They're going to know it the way that you know something that reorganizes everything. Shakespeare has this line, right? And not in the way that we usually mean it. A rose by any other name would smell just as sweet. The name is how we just point to a thing, but the reality underneath it is what matters. So the real question is always, what's the reality underneath the thing? What's the thing itself? Empire says the thing itself is power. That's the thing. That's what empire has. Who belongs, who doesn't, how you can get what you want, how you can enforce what you need to enforce. And the synagogue answers lineage. It's who you are. It's who you come from. It's the story of your people. It's the fact that you're a Jew. It's the fact that your father is Abraham. We can point to that. That lineage is the answer. But Christ answers. He says the answer is, I have loved you. That's the answer to the question. That's why a rose by any other name would be just as sweet, because the truth has always been the truth. That's the reality under your name. Not what you owe, not your credentials. It's what love has already accomplished for you. It's already unreachable. I laugh about this with the word pineapple. We've got all these ways that all the languages in the world have the name for pineapple. And then there's English. So it's like the entire world agrees that it's some form of ananas or something like that. You know, like you can go through all the language, see this and everything, and then you have English pineapple. Unlike all the others, we are proudly defined to the entire world with what we call this spiky fruit. We're wrong and we don't care. If there's a true name for a pineapple, we are an outright defiance to it. But who are you? And empire will tell you one thing. The synagogue will tell you another. The Baptist might tell you one thing. Vineyard might tell you another. All those things don't matter. What has Christ called you? What is the name that he has given? What is the true name behind everything else? You are beloved. That's the reality underneath whatever these things might be. Your name follows the power because the power is what's real. The door is already open, and it's been opened for you. Philadelphia was near Caesarea when Tiberius held the key. Flavia when Vespasian had it. But in all these instances, they were the beloved. They were always the beloved. Love was never an empire's ability to threaten. All right, so empire has no leverage on love. Every other letter is involved in a contest with empire, but Philadelphia is different. Empire succeeds where fear of loss governs the imagination, where you have something to lose, right? Where you could lose your status or safety or belonging, your city's name, your legal protection, your livelihood. Give us your allegiance and we won't take it. That's the mechanism that empire levies against the church, right? It's a real threat. They have real power and they have to understand that. And it requires one thing, that the other party must be operating from fear of loss. As long as we're afraid of that loss, as long as that loss feels palpable and tangible and something that is intolerable for us, that lever works against us. We must have something that we're protecting. It must be organized around the things that empire can give or take. But Philadelphia doesn't work that way. Empire can't pull that lever. Not because they're naive, not because they don't have that real loss. They have little strength. They can't fight back on those things. They've been excluded and the cost has been real. But what they're actually living from isn't accessible to empire's mechanisms. Love doesn't resist empire. Love doesn't defy empire. Love is simply not organized around the same things that empire is organized around. It's a completely different currency. It's a completely different economy, a completely different system of what governs us. When you know that you are beloved and you're on that firm foundation, you are untouchable by these things. And that's not just the promise, that's the reality of it. Those things just can't affect you in the same way. This is the hope that we have as why the gospel recreates us. Why we come from a different source, why we're going to a different place, why we have a different king, why we have a different understanding of things. Empire is organized around power and leverage, what can be given and taken. But love just is. It's not a strategy to give or to take. It's not a posture. It's not even a response. It's just nature. You just are loved. And that's why the credential that Christ says is holy and true. It's not that he's powerful. It's not that he's victorious. It's not that he's stronger than empire. He is all those things. But the thing that matters the most is that he's of a different order than of reality than anything else just in its nature. Empire has always been shadowboxing with this. The thing it could never quite get its hands on. The life that keeps showing up in prison cells, in arenas, in little churches with little strength that somehow just won't toe the line. Not because these people are exceptionally brave, but it's because we have always been beloved. And the love that they're living from is not in there to threaten. So endurance, verse 10. Since you have kept my command to endure patiently, I will also keep you from the hour of trial that's going to come on the whole world to test the inhabitants of the earth. I'm coming soon. Hold on to what you have so that no one will take your crown. Patient endurance is the explicit basis for the promise. Endurance is what a little strength looks like over time, right? Not a dramatic moment of courage, not the single costly choice, the sustained, quiet, unglamorous continuation of this simple thing. He kept his word, didn't deny his name, day after day, in a city that renames itself with every political power change, but they remain faithful. Endurance is love over time. There's these two words that we have here. It's the tereo. You kept my word, and I will keep tereo you. It's this beautiful parallel that it says, you have kept my word, and I will keep you. It's the same verb. It's this faithfulness that's moving back and forth in this loving relationship. He loves us, and we love him. We choose him, and he chooses us. The same way we see this. The endurance that looked like it was costing Philadelphia everything turns out to be what's holding them up and doing the same thing back. You keep his word. He keeps you the whole time. Empire is transactional, right? You perform and they provide. Stop performing and empire stops providing. It's always contingent, but that's not love. The hour of trial coming on the whole world. Trial tests the inhabitants of the earth. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Those who are primarily organizing reality in the earthly order. What empire can give and take, what power determines, what the key holders decide. But Philadelphia is living something else, and the trial has no reach to where they are. Like, that's the beautiful thing here. It's like you are untouchable by this trial that is coming. It can't reach you. And then it says, I am coming soon. This is not a distant reward. He is close. The only warning in the letter is internal. Not that empire will overpower you, but that you'll stop believing what you're holding is worth holding. It's the crown, the athlete's wreath, the same promise to Smyrna. Endurance matters. Hold on. So here's the promise. Verse 12. The one who is victorious, I will make a pillar in the temple of my God. Never again will they leave it. I will write on them the name of my God, the name of the city of my God, the new Jerusalem, which is coming down out of heaven from my God. And I'll also write on them my new name. Whoever has ears, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches. The door and the pillar. It's direct conversation. The door is a question of access. Can you get in? Who holds the key? The threshold you have to walk through to get to the person on the other side. But the pillar is the thing integral to the building itself. It's the thing that sustains everything. It's the thing that holds it. It's the essence of the thing itself. You are of the building. The question of access has been so thoroughly answered that the form of the answer is structural permanence. You don't just pass through the door. You are the pillar. You are the pillar, and my name is engraved upon you. Never, you can't leave. You can't get that pillar out without the entire structure coming down. It's a powerful place to say that you are now such an integral part of the synagogue, an integral part of the kingdom of heaven, that this is where you are. And I will give you this name. 3 names written on the pillar. The name of God, the name of the city God, and Christ's own new name. In a city that renames itself all the time, who have their name changed by whoever is in power. They have 3 names written by one person, permanent, not contingent on the next earthquake. These are the real pillars in Philadelphia. Whenever this was written, this is what they were thinking about. These can withstand earthquakes. These pillars, when everything else have fallen down, remain. I am sure that the church in Philadelphia thought about things of such weight, of such permanence, whenever they read this letter themselves. They thought, that's who we are. The world can shake. The world can take things away from us. The name of the city might change generation after generation, but that pillar, which is standing 2,000 years later, is what Christ has promised us. This is the answer to damnatio memori, the answer to Tutmos III, the answer to every power that has tried to erase a name. I will write on them the name of my God. Never again will they leave it. It's not chiseled out. It's not going to be plastered over. It's not reassigned when the next power takes over. This is what we have. This is who we are.